Today, we are going to look at the most disturbing deaths caused by pranks. From a college student's electric prank that killed a lab partner, to a drowning prank that took a lifeguard's life. Let's dive straight in. It was April 12, 2018, when a university engineering lab became the scene of a fatal accident that would forever change how students approached experimental projects. The basement laboratory of a Michigan university was particularly damp that evening. Cold rain had left moisture on the concrete floors as students tracked water inside. The aging ventilation system hummed quietly, providing minimal air circulation in the windowless space filled with the scent of electronic components and cleaning solvents. Bianca Rhodes, a 20-year-old junior studying electrical engineering, was known among her peers for her methodical approach to coursework and her willingness to stay late perfecting her projects. Her friends described her as someone who took pride in understanding every component of her circuit designs. According to witness statements, she was working on a complex assignment that evening, her desk lamp casting a focused circle of light over her breadboard and scattered components. Her lab partner, a fellow engineering student with a reputation for practical jokes, had spent the previous hour modifying a novelty shocking device using components from their shared lab supplies. According to police interviews, he had modified the device to create a stronger jolt than typical store-bought versions. The device drew power directly from a standard wall outlet through a makeshift transformer he had assembled without safety testing or instructor approval. Witnesses told investigators he had joked earlier in the evening about giving someone a harmless surprise shock, similar to the novelty devices students sometimes passed around during late lab sessions. University security cameras captured her lab partner approaching Bianca's workstation and extending his hand in what appeared to be a congratulatory gesture. When their hands made contact, the modified device sent a dangerously strong shock directly through Bianca's hand and arm, as investigators later determined that the improvised transformer had an exposed, energized surface large enough to trigger full hand muscle contraction, which witnesses described as her hand locking around the device. According to witness statements from other students in the lab, Bianca's muscles contracted involuntarily, preventing her from releasing her grip. The electrical current passed through her chest cavity for several seconds because the device continued delivering voltage as long as she was gripping the exposed contact until her lab partner kicked the power cord from the wall outlet. Bianca immediately collapsed, showing signs of respiratory distress. Campus security arrived within 4 minutes of the emergency call. Paramedics performed CPR and used an automated external defibrillator, but were unable to restore normal heart rhythm. Bianca was transported to the university hospital, where she was pronounced dead at 11:23 that evening. The medical examiner determined that Bianca died from cardiac arrhythmia, secondary to electrical shock. The current had disrupted her heart's normal electrical conduction system, causing it to stop beating effectively. University investigators found that the modified device had been constructed without proper safety protocols and delivered dangerous levels of electrical current. Investigators also documented a small burn mark on her palm and slight charring on the device's exposed contact point, consistent with prolonged electrical conduction. The incident was ruled an accidental death. University officials implemented stricter policies regarding unauthorized electrical modifications and enhanced safety training for engineering students. Bianca's lab partner was placed on temporary suspension from all laboratory access, required to undergo formal safety retraining, and faced academic disciplinary proceedings once the investigation confirmed the device had been assembled without authorization. The tragedy highlighted the hidden dangers of seemingly harmless pranks involving electrical devices, particularly when modified by inexperienced individuals without proper safety knowledge or equipment testing. It was August 22, 2015, when a camping trip prank at Glacier National Park resulted in a fatal wildlife encounter that could have been prevented. Late summer brought warm, 72-degree days to Glacier National Park, though nights remained cool around 45 degrees. Esther Lee, a 23-year-old recent graduate who worked as a research assistant at a local environmental consulting firm, was known for her love of nature and regular outdoor activities. Her colleagues described her as someone who maintained consistent routines and felt comfortable in wilderness settings. According to police interviews, Esther was camping with college friends at Apgar campground when one member of the group decided to execute an elaborate scare prank. Her friend, an amateur photographer who enjoyed creating dramatic content for social media, had purchased a realistic bear costume online specifically for this purpose. Park rangers had recently reported black bear activity in the area, including sightings of a sow with cubs near the campground. According to witness statements, the plan involved positioning the costumed individual behind a large boulder along Esther's regular morning jogging route. Early morning fog reduced visibility to approximately 20 to 30 feet along the lakeshore trail. Her friend later told investigators he had chosen these conditions for filming. Esther typically jogged alone on this trail each morning, wearing earbuds and following the same predictable route. Her friend positioned himself near the trail before dawn, waiting for her routine exercise session to begin. As Esther approached the predetermined location, the costumed friend emerged from behind the boulder as planned. Esther screamed and immediately began running back toward the campground. However, her loud vocalizations and rapid movement attracted the attention of an actual black bear located approximately 70 yards away. According to a later Park Service investigation of tracks and witness accounts, the real bear was a protective sow with 2 cubs who perceived the commotion as a potential threat to her offspring. The bear charged defensively toward the source of the disturbance. Esther ran directly into the sow's path at close range, an outcome investigators said was consistent with fog-limited visibility and panic. The bear reacted instinctively to protect her cubs, inflicting severe trauma through multiple bite wounds to Esther's neck and torso area. The friend in the costume heard Esther's screams change in intensity and removed his costume head to assess the situation. He immediately recognized the presence of the real bear and retreated while calling for help from other campers in the area. Park rangers responded to emergency calls within approximately 12 minutes of the initial incident. Esther was found unresponsive and was pronounced dead at the scene from massive traumatic injuries, consistent with a defensive bear attack. The National Park Service medical examiner ruled the death accidental, noting that the bear's behavior was a typical defensive response to perceived threats near cubs. Park officials closed the immediate area and monitored the sow and her cubs, but determined no removal action was necessary, given the defensive nature of the encounter. The individual who conducted the prank was cited for wildlife harassment and creating hazardous conditions. He received a substantial fine and was required to complete a comprehensive wildlife safety education program. This incident demonstrated how human activities that mimic natural threats can trigger genuine defensive responses from wild animals protecting their young. It was October 28, 2017, when a Halloween party prank in Nashville ended in tragedy due to a fatal assumption about a firearms condition. Halloween weekend brought mild 62-degree temperatures to the Belmont neighborhood. Garrison Boyd, a 21-year-old college student who worked part-time at a local automotive shop, was attending a costume party at his friend's house. Those who knew Garrison described him as easygoing and always willing to participate in group activities. His co-workers noted that he enjoyed being the center of attention and rarely backed down from a challenge or dare, often being the first to volunteer for risky stunts or elaborate pranks. The party host, an aspiring filmmaker who collected theatrical props for his video projects, had planned an elaborate staged robbery scenario to film guests' reactions for social media content. According to the police investigation, among his collection of replica weapons was an older revolver he had purchased at an estate sale, which he assumed to be non-functional and safe for use as a prop based solely on its weathered appearance and the seller's assurances. The basement party room featured dimly colored lighting that made detailed visual inspection difficult. The host had not verified the weapon's condition with a qualified person, nor had he followed proper safety protocols for handling firearms. According to witness statements, the plan involved confronting party guests at gunpoint, while others filmed their genuine reactions to the apparent threat. Garrison volunteered to be the first participant in the staged scenario. According to witness statements from other party guests, the host approached Garrison with the revolver, demanding his wallet as part of the scripted robbery scene. Garrison played along with the performance, raising his hands and backing against the basement wall in apparent compliance. The host pointed the weapon at Garrison's chest from approximately 4 feet away and pulled the trigger. According to witness accounts, he expected only a harmless click, believing the revolver was non-functional due to its age and visible wear. Instead, the firearm discharged a live round that had remained in the cylinder from its previous owner. The .38 caliber bullet struck Garrison in the chest, causing him to collapse immediately. Initial confusion among party guests delayed recognition that an actual shooting had occurred. Many attendees initially believed the blood in Garrison's collapse were part of the elaborate prank, given the theatrical nature of the setup. The realization that something had gone seriously wrong prompted multiple emergency calls. Police and paramedics arrived within minutes of the first call. Garrison was pronounced dead at the scene from a single gunshot wound to the chest. The medical examiner later determined that the bullet had caused fatal cardiac perforation. Police investigation revealed that the firearm had not been properly cleared or inspected before use. The weapon contained a live round that the host was unaware of, having assumed the gun was completely safe based on its purchase as a theatrical prop. The host was charged with criminally negligent homicide for his failure to ensure the weapon was safe before using it in the prank. He was subsequently convicted and sentenced to prison time. The incident prompted the local theater and film community to implement stricter safety protocols regarding the use of realistic firearms in productions. The tragedy highlighted the critical importance of treating all firearms as potentially loaded and dangerous, regardless of their intended purpose or assumed condition. It was September 15, 2019, when a trust challenge at an abandoned quarry in Flagstaff turned fatal due to unstable terrain and a prank that went horribly wrong. Early autumn brought crisp 48-degree temperatures and clear skies to northern Arizona. Vera Wells, a 22-year-old recent college graduate who worked as a marketing assistant at a local firm, had joined her hiking group for what they called an adventure challenge. Her colleagues described Vera as someone who embraced outdoor activities and trusted her friends completely. The abandoned limestone quarry, located 12 miles outside Flagstaff, had been closed since the mid-1990s. The site featured a water-filled pit, approximately 60 feet deep, surrounded by weathered rock ledges and loose gravel surfaces. Recent rainfall had further destabilized sections of the limestone rim, though this condition was not apparent to the group. According to police interviews, Vera's friends, who maintained an adventure vlog, had planned what they told Vera was a blindfolded navigation challenge. However, investigators later discovered the group had secretly planned to prank Vera by guiding her close to what they believed was a small, harmless cliff edge to frighten her before revealing the joke. The concept involved Vera wearing a blindfold and noise-canceling headphones while they provided guidance through physical contact. The group had scouted the area earlier and identified what they thought was a minor drop-off of only a few feet that would create a thrilling scare without real danger. They planned to guide Vera to this edge, let her feel the drop with her foot, then reveal the prank while filming her reaction. According to witness statements, they were executing their prank by deliberately guiding Vera toward what they believed was the small, safe cliff edge they had identified earlier. However, in the changed afternoon conditions, they had miscalculated their location and were actually approaching the main quarry rim instead of the minor drop-off. As part of their prank, they intentionally loosened their guidance contact to make Vera feel uncertain and heighten her fear before the planned reveal. During this deliberate gap in guidance, Vera took another step forward, expecting solid ground. Instead, her foot landed on a section of limestone ledge that had been weakened by recent weather conditions at the actual quarry edge. The ledge collapsed under her weight, and Vera fell approximately 60 feet toward the water below. Witnesses reported that she struck multiple rock surfaces during the descent before entering the quarry pool. Her friends immediately realized their fatal mistake and attempted to locate her, but could not see her resurface. Emergency responders from the local sheriff's office were contacted and a specialized dive team was deployed. The recovery operation took several hours due to the depth of the water and the remote location. Vera was recovered from approximately 35 feet of water. The county medical examiner determined that she had died from multiple blunt force trauma sustained during the fall. The injuries were consistent with striking solid rock surfaces at high velocity. The incident was ruled an accidental death. Investigators determined that the group had misidentified their location while attempting to execute their prank. leading Vera to the actual quarry edge instead of the minor drop-off they had intended to use. County officials later installed additional warning signage and protective fencing around the quarry site. The group members faced charges related to reckless endangerment and were required to complete community service and safety education programs. This fatal accident demonstrated how pranks involving environmental hazards can turn deadly when participants misjudge real dangers in unfamiliar terrain. It was November 11, 2018, when a fake kidnapping prank in downtown Phoenix ended in tragedy after being mistaken for an actual crime by law enforcement. Veterans Day evening brought clear skies and 68-degree temperatures to downtown Phoenix. Darren Cole, a 24-year-old warehouse supervisor who had recently started working for a logistics company, was known among his friends for his outgoing personality and willingness to participate in elaborate social media content. His co-workers described him as someone who enjoyed being part of group projects and rarely declined opportunities to help friends with their creative endeavors. According to the police investigation, Darren's friends, who maintained a social media channel focused on prank content, had planned an elaborate fake abduction scenario to film in a downtown parking garage. The group had rented a white van and purchased ski masks, intending to stage a realistic kidnapping scene that would capture genuine reactions from bystanders before revealing the prank. According to witness statements, they selected the third level of a multi-story parking garage on a busy downtown street. The concrete structure featured typical garage acoustics with echoing sounds and mixed lighting conditions from fluorescent fixtures and natural light filtering through openings. The timing was planned for early evening when commuter foot traffic would be heavy, ensuring potential witnesses to captured on camera. Darren had agreed to play the role of victim, with his friends acting as masked abductors, while another member filmed the entire sequence from a concealed position. As the staged kidnapping began, Darren's friends approached him wearing ski masks and began forcing him toward their van, while he shouted for help as part of the scripted performance. An off-duty police detective walking to her personal vehicle 2 rows away heard the commotion and immediately responded to what appeared to be a genuine crime in progress. The detective identified herself as law enforcement, drew her service weapon, and issued commands for the suspects to stop and show their hands. The garage's acoustics created overlapping echoes, and the dim lighting made it difficult to distinguish details clearly. During the rapidly evolving situation, one of Darren's friends made a sudden movement while attempting to retrieve his phone to stop recording the prank. In the confusion of shouted commands, movement, and poor visibility, the detective perceived an imminent threat and discharged her weapon 3 times, with 2 rounds striking concrete barriers and 1 striking Darren. Darren, positioned between the detective and his friends during the confrontation, was struck by 1 round in the chest. The group immediately began shouting that the situation was a prank and dropped their props. But the shooting had already occurred. Emergency medical services arrived within minutes and transported Darren to a regional trauma center. He was pronounced dead en route from a gunshot wound that had caused fatal cardiac damage. After reviewing security camera footage from the parking garage and interviewing witnesses, the county attorney's office determined that the shooting was justified based on the detective's reasonable belief of imminent serious harm during what appeared to be a violent felony in progress. Darren's friends were cited for disorderly conduct and creating a public nuisance. Following the incident, the Phoenix Police Department issued public advisories warning against conducting realistic crime-themed pranks in public spaces due to the potential for tragic misunderstandings with law enforcement. This fatal encounter highlighted the serious risks of staging realistic criminal scenarios without proper coordination with authorities. It was July 3, 2016, when a 4th of July celebration in Sacramento turned deadly due to an improvised pyrotechnic device that malfunctioned catastrophically. The day before Independence Day brought clear skies and 95-degree heat to Riverside Park. Murphy Cole, a 19-year-old community college student who worked part-time at a local retail store, was known for his enthusiasm about special effects and his willingness to help friends with creative projects. His co-workers described him as someone who enjoyed being part of elaborate plans and rarely turned down an opportunity to participate in group activities. According to police interviews, Murphy's friend had devised an elaborate prank to scare their group of friends during the evening barbecue. The plan involved Murphy hiding behind trees near the picnic area and setting off what his friend described as a harmless flashbang devices to startle the group while they were eating dinner. His friend, an amateur videographer who had been experimenting with homemade pyrotechnics after watching online tutorials, assured Murphy that the devices were completely safe and would only produce loud sounds and bright flashes. The friend had constructed several devices using improvised explosive mixtures housed in rigid aluminum containers, telling Murphy they contained only flash powder similar to what photographers used. The group had chosen a secluded area near the American River, away from the main picnic areas where families were celebrating. Investigators later determined that Murphy believed he was handling safe theatrical effects. His friend had convinced him that the devices were designed to create dramatic visual effects without any real danger, similar to stage pyrotechnics used in concerts. The homemade explosives featured unreliable fuses made from cotton strings soaked in a saltpeter solution. Though Murphy had been told they were standard safety fuses that would give him plenty of time to retreat. As evening approached and their friends gathered around the picnic tables, Murphy positioned himself behind a cluster of trees approximately 30 yards from the group. According to his friend's video footage, which was later reviewed by investigators, Murphy lit what he believed was a harmless flash device and began moving away from it as instructed. The fuse burned much faster than Murphy had been told it would. The device detonated within seconds of ignition before Murphy could reach what he thought was a safe distance. The thick-walled aluminum tube fragmented upon explosion, sending sharp metal projectiles in multiple directions. Several pieces struck Murphy in the chest and abdomen area. The largest fragment, approximately 2 inches in length, penetrated his torso. Murphy fell backward and remained motionless on the ground. The group of friends at the picnic tables, who were supposed to be the targets of the prank, instead witnessed Murphy's fatal injury. Multiple emergency calls were placed within minutes of the incident. Murphy's friend, who had been filming the entire sequence, immediately called for help while attempting to provide first aid. Sacramento Fire Department paramedics arrived and found Murphy in critical condition with severe internal bleeding. He was transported to a regional medical center where trauma surgeons attempted to repair damage to vital organs. Despite their efforts, Murphy died during surgery from complications related to multiple penetrating wounds. The county coroner ruled the death accidental, citing massive internal trauma caused by metal fragments from the improvised explosive device. Investigators determined that Murphy had been misled about the safety of the devices and had positioned himself dangerously close during ignition based on false assurances from his friend. Murphy's friend faced criminal charges related to the unlawful manufacture and use of explosive devices and reckless endangerment. He received a prison sentence and was required to complete community service focused on public safety education. The incident prompted local authorities to increase enforcement of fireworks regulations and issue public warnings about the dangers of homemade pyrotechnics. It was October 9, 2017, in Tempe, Arizona. Inside one rental home on South Mill Avenue, the phone's tiny recording indicator blinked faintly in the dark hallway. The larger LED panel beside it was switched off to keep the scene pitch black for the jump scare. He had rehearsed the jump twice, whispering into the lens with quiet anticipation. Daniel Mercer, 22, was a communications major in his senior year at ASU. He lived with 2 roommates and spent weekends editing short comedy clips for a YouTube channel he'd started in high school. His content leaned toward harmless slapstick, staged scares, fake arguments, and mild dares. The channel's growth had stalled, drawing pressure from peers who joked that his videos were stuck at 400 views. Friends described him as good-natured and persistent, always with a camera in hand. The prank series he had planned for October was meant to push his content slightly further. Halloween scare videos, as he called them. Their rental home was a narrow, 1-story unit with thin drywall and laminate floors. Daniel's gear consisted of a tripod-mounted phone, a small LED panel, and a wireless mic clipped to his hoodie. His roommate, Alex Whitmore, 23, worked part-time at a car shop and often came home late. Alex had mentioned weeks earlier that he purchased a handgun after a nearby break-in. He usually kept it in his backpack during the day, but had since gotten into the habit of slipping it into a belt holster before unlocking the door at night. Daniel brushed it off, assuming the weapon stayed unloaded or stored away. That night, he texted another friend that he planned to scare the hell out of Alex for the next upload. The setup was simple. Daniel would wait in the hallway between the kitchen and bedrooms, hidden behind the half-open pantry door. The phone camera, facing the corridor, had a clear shot of where Alex would walk in. The recording started at 12:34 a.m., 8 minutes of silence, except for Daniel's quiet breathing. He adjusted the ski mask and crouched, phone mic barely picking up the creak of the door as he leaned forward. At 12:42 a.m., the front door opened. From the shadowed corner, Daniel lunged forward, shouting to scare Alex. The figure at the door fired almost instantly, mistaking him for a burglar. The camera on the tripod continued recording. In the corner of the frame, Daniel's body twitched once, then went still. Blood spread rapidly across the tile, pooling against the baseboard within half a minute. Moments later, Alex dropped his backpack, the impact echoing through the hallway. He stumbled forward, gun still in hand, his breathing sharp and uneven. Realizing who was on the floor, he froze, then fumbled for his phone. His voice cracked as he called emergency services, repeating Daniel's name again and again. At 12:43 a.m., the 911 operator logged a report of an accidental shooting during suspected break-in. When police arrived 7 minutes later, they found Daniel unresponsive with a single gunshot wound to the chest. The investigation concluded that the Glock 19 used in the shooting was legally owned and loaded with hollow-point rounds. Gunshot residue tests confirmed a close-range discharge, consistent with roughly 1 to 3 feet, matching the estimated gap between Daniel's position in the hallway and the front doorway at the moment he lunged. No evidence suggested intent. Detectives determined the lighting and mask made immediate recognition impossible. The phone recording, intact, was retrieved as part of the case file. Authorities ruled the shooting accidental. No charges were filed after review by the county attorney's office, though the Mercer family sought civil action against Alex Whitmore for negligence. Friends described him as withdrawn afterward, avoiding calls and dropping out before the end of the semester. It was August 30th, 2015, on the Mendocino coast of Northern California. The parking lot at the Point Arena turnout was almost empty, save for a single silver sedan facing the water. Beyond the fence, the bluffs dropped steeply to a narrow stretch of jagged rock where waves struck in slow, rhythmic bursts. Lydia Harper, 25, was an elementary school teacher from Sacramento, known among her colleagues for her warmth and even temper. She'd started teaching second grade 2 years earlier and was about to begin the fall semester. She had been dating Evan Clark, 26, for 3 years. They shared a modest apartment near the freeway and occasionally filmed short couple challenges, mostly for their friends' amusement. The weekend trip to the coast had been Evan's idea, a brief escape before work resumed. Evan worked as a junior contractor for a construction firm in Elk Grove. The job had been wearing on him, and he joked about needing to do something fun for once. He had recently watched a viral video of a man pretending to propose as a prank, which went mildly viral among his peers. That weekend, he brought along a small ring box with a plastic ring inside and planned to film Lydia's shocked reaction using his phone. The spot near Point Arena, with its open view of the sea, seemed ideal. They arrived at the turnout just after 6 p.m. The fog was thickening, leaving a thin layer of condensation across the grass and gravel. The couple walked beyond the wooden fence to a flat area of exposed earth about 10 feet from the edge. Evan set his phone on record and propped it against his backpack, adjusting it until the frame showed both of them with the ocean behind. Lydia, unaware, stood watching the waves. The wind had begun to pick up slightly, dragging fine mist through the air. From the recording later recovered by investigators, the moment seemed casual. Laughter, the faint sound of surf, and the crackle of wind over the microphone. Evan dropped to one knee with exaggerated seriousness, holding out the small box. Lydia gasped, clutching her face with both hands, her laugh audible. She took a step back instinctively, shaking her head as if to scold him. The heel of her right shoe caught a patch of loose gravel near the edge. In the footage, her balance faltered. Her arms flailed, and a sudden sharp inhale cut through the audio. Evan lunged forward, shouting her name. The sound of his shoes scraping the ground could be heard, followed by a choked cry, filling the remaining seconds. The recording showed him leaning forward from about 3 feet behind her, stopping short of the cliff edge, shouting into the white void. He slipped once, catching himself on his knees, and then the video cut off as he reached for the phone. Investigators later determined he attempted to climb down the unstable slope, sliding roughly 15 feet before stopping due to the terrain and just calling for help instead. He suffered abrasions to his arms and legs and was treated for mild hypothermia that night. Search teams began work at dawn. Visibility was poor, but a Coast Guard helicopter eventually located Lydia Harper's body on a rocky ledge about 40 feet below the lookout. The coroner determined she had died instantly from blunt force trauma to the head and chest. The death was ruled accidental. Evan Clark was not charged, though he withdrew from social circles and resigned from his job within the year. The bluff was later fenced and posted with additional signage warning of unstable footing and no access beyond the barrier. It was October 29, 2018, in Portland, Oregon. A low-pressure system had settled over the Willamette Valley that evening. Inside the Walsh family's two-story home in the Montevilla neighborhood, lights dimmed occasionally as thunder rolled overhead, but the power stayed on. The house was quiet except for the sound of rain and the muffled laughter of two siblings waiting out the storm. Jeremy Walsh was 17, a high school senior who liked to turn dull moments into jokes. He played varsity baseball, worked part-time at a grocery store, and planned to study graphic design after graduation. His sense of humor was impulsive, often leaning toward small pranks. Nothing cruel, but sometimes poorly timed. Family described him as easygoing, restless, and constantly chasing reactions. His parents, both healthcare workers, were working late shifts that night. The Walsh family had adopted Rex, a 90-pound German shepherd, from a rescue group that spring. The dog had been described as protective, but trainable, with a history of agitation toward unfamiliar people and erratic behavior during loud noises. Jeremy's father had installed indoor cameras to monitor Rex's behavior while they were away. The cameras used infrared sensors and stored footage on a cloud server. On stormy nights, the dog tended to pace the hallways or bark at sudden sounds, something Jeremy found amusing rather than concerning. That evening, the rain intensified, lightning flickering through the living room windows and briefly illuminating the walls. Jeremy decided to play a Halloween-themed prank on his younger sister, Emily, who was 13. He found an old cracked plastic mask from a previous year's costume and a black hoodie from his baseball bag. Ignoring Rex's nervous pacing, Jeremy whispered to his sister from the hallway, then disappeared into the shadows, planning to jump out when she turned the corner. Emily hid under a blanket on the couch, phone light trembling in her hand. The dog's tension built gradually, triggered by the series of thunder that rolled through the house. The home security footage later reviewed by investigators showed Rex pacing, ears pinned, eyes fixed toward the hallway. When a louder clap shook the windows, his body stiffened, a typical fear response that often preceded defensive behavior in anxious dogs. Jeremy moved slowly toward the living room. When he reached the doorway, he crouched, mask glinting faintly in the dim light. The next instant, the camera recorded the rapid burst of movement, Rex lunging with full force. The sound of claws scraping on laminate flooring was followed by a heavy impact and Jeremy's startled cry. The first bite landed on Jeremy's left forearm, tearing through skin and muscle. He stumbled backward, falling onto the floor as the dog held on, shaking its head violently. The mask fell off and rolled toward the couch. Jeremy tried to push Rex away with his free hand, leaving deep scratches along his wrist. The room filled with the sound of barking, wet thuds, and the muffled sobbing of his sister. Blood splattered against the floor, visible in the grainy camera feed as dark streaks. The struggle lasted 47 seconds before Jeremy stopped moving. The dog released its grip, pacing in small circles, whining softly before retreating toward the kitchen. Emily fled the house barefoot into the rain, screaming for help. Paramedics reached the home 8 minutes after a 911 call from their neighbor. Jeremy was found near the living room entrance, with massive blood loss from a severed brachial artery. Attempts at resuscitation failed. His parents returned from the hospital that night to find the living room sealed with tape. Jeremy's death was ruled accidental. Animal control officers secured Rex without incident. The dog's prior behavioral notes confirmed 2 previous warnings for unprovoked aggression. The family requested euthanasia rather than relocation. His parents couldn't bring themselves to re-enter the house for weeks, staying instead with a relative. The Walshes later sold the house quietly the following spring and moved across town. It was July 3rd, 2016, in Austin, Texas. In a small suburban garage, a camera light blinked red. The space smelled faintly of motor oil and sweat, the walls lined with storage bins and old Halloween props. Tyler Brooks had been filming there for months, chasing a kind of low-budget fame that never seemed to arrive. Tyler, 20, was a communications major at Austin Community College and the self-described comedian of his small friend group. He ran a YouTube channel called Scarcely, known for crude humor, fake challenges, and edited skits mocking viral internet trends. Despite the lack of traction, he treated it seriously, convinced that persistence mattered more than views. He balanced part-time warehouse shifts with late-night editing sessions, cutting footage on an aging laptop while watching commentary channels he hoped to one day join. His humor often leaned into self-endangerment, fake electrocutions, pepper spray dares, and one video where he pretended to pass out while live streaming. The setup that day was meant to mock internet hoaxes about viral self-harm challenges. The gag would involve Tyler pretending to hang himself mid-video, only to cut to him laughing seconds later. For safety, he'd borrowed a nylon climbing harness from a friend who used it for rock gym sessions, clipping it to a steel beam that ran across the ceiling. He tied a separate length of yellow nylon rope into a noose-style loop purely for appearance. The plan was to balance on a stool, kick it away for visual effect, then let the harness support his weight from a slack point just below the rope. It was a crude rig, improvised, untested, and meant only for a few seconds of filming. Tyler began recording around 2:13 p.m. The recovered footage, later analyzed by police, showed him positioning the camera at chest height, centering himself in the frame beneath the beam. He slipped the noose over his neck and adjusted the angle of the rope for dramatic effect. Sweat glistened on his forehead as he pulled at the harness clip, unaware it had rotated slightly against the beam, leaving only partial contact with the anchor point. His friends were due to arrive at 3. At 2:21 p.m., Tyler stepped onto the stool. He faced the camera, gave a mock salute, and kicked the stool aside. The sound of the metal clip failing came half a second later. A sharp, metallic snap followed by a deep, choking thud. The harness carabiner had twisted free under tension, leaving the rope loop to cinch tight around his throat. His body jerked violently as his legs scraped against the concrete floor. The camera microphone picked up guttural choking noises and erratic movement. His arms flailed upward once, striking the tripod hard enough to jostle the frame. Then came only the scrape of shoes against the floor and a series of shallow, gurgling breaths. For 42 seconds, the motion continued, desperate, disorganized, and slowing. Then everything went still. The frame stayed fixed on his body, swaying gently beneath the beam. The camera's clock kept counting silently as minutes passed. At 2:58 p.m., muffled voices came from outside. His friends returning from the store. The garage door opened, flooding the space with daylight, and their screams filled the audio. One of them rushed to cut him down, while another's voice, shaking, could be heard calling emergency services. Police arrived within 10 minutes. Emergency responders pronounced Tyler Brooks dead at the scene from ligature asphyxiation. Investigators examined the harness and determined that the clip had not been properly secured through both loops of the beam anchor. There were no signs of intent beyond the prank setup, confirmed by the footage and the script notes found on his laptop. The death was ruled accidental. His parents removed his channel within days, quietly deleting every video. They donated his camera and tripod to a local film school that year. It was February 15th, 2017, in Cincinnati, Ohio. The morning began quietly inside a mid-rise office building. On the 4th floor, a routine departmental meeting was in progress. It was an ordinary weekday discussion, without anyone expecting what would happen next. Mark Benton, 28, worked as a sales assistant. He had joined the company 3 years earlier after leaving community college. And though not the most focused employee, he was well liked. His humor broke up the monotony of long workdays. Office pranks, inside jokes, and harmless ribbing. He wasn't malicious, just impulsive, and often underestimated how seriously others took rules. The building itself was old, but well maintained, equipped with manual pull alarms near each stairwell and a dated but functioning sprinkler system. That morning, the atmosphere in the office had been dull. Some staff were half joking about the long meeting schedule, and Mark, restless as usual, made an offhand comment about how easily the fire alarm could liven things up. Several co-workers laughed it off, assuming he was joking. But 10 minutes later, during a lull in conversation, he quietly stepped into the hallway, saying he was going to refill his coffee. The meeting continued as he lingered near the door. According to his later statement to police, the impulse hit him without much thought. He reached toward the alarm pull beside the stairwell, curious what would happen. The building's last fire alarm had been 6 years earlier, so most employees had never heard it in full volume. Mark looked over his shoulder, then pulled the lever. The alarm blared instantly, shrill, mechanical, deafening in the narrow corridor. Inside the conference room, startled employees leapt from their seats. Sandra Perez, the operations manager leading the meeting, shouted for everyone to evacuate, believing it was real. Witnesses later described the confusion: chairs toppling, coffee spilling, and papers scattering as the group surged toward the stairwell. Near the stairwell entrance stood Henry Lawson, 61, the building's janitor and a former Army mechanic. He had been waxing the floors just minutes before, his caution sign still standing nearby. The noise startled him. One witness recalled seeing him grab his chest and lean against the wall. As the crowd pressed past, someone's shoulder clipped him, throwing off his balance on the slick tile. Multiple witnesses said they saw him twist sideways before disappearing from view. He fell 2 flights, striking the steel handrail on the way down before hitting the concrete landing head first. The alarm continued blaring until Sandra reached the control panel and silenced it. When employees reached the bottom of the stairwell, Henry was motionless, blood pooling beneath his head. One staff member attempted CPR, while another called 911. Paramedics arrived within 6 minutes, but declared him dead at the scene from severe cranial trauma. Mark remained frozen near the hallway corner when police arrived. In his statement, he said he pulled the alarm as a joke to break the tension and didn't realize the repercussions. The following week, the company issued a statement calling the event a preventable tragedy resulting from reckless behavior. Authorities and local prosecutors reviewed witness accounts and concluded that Henry's death resulted from the false alarm and ensuing panic. Mark Benton was charged with negligent manslaughter and accepted a plea deal for 2 years in state custody. It was April 9th, 2016, in Raleigh, North Carolina. A humid spring night hung over the North Carolina State University campus. Laughter and music drifted from one of the older fraternity houses. The air was heavy with beer, sweat, and a restless energy that always built before something went too far. Chris Tanner Wells was 20, a sophomore majoring in kinesiology with dreams of becoming a physical therapist. He was well-liked, athletic but mild-mannered, the kind of guy who volunteered for everything and rarely said no. Joining a fraternity was part of his effort to fit in, to find the same brotherhood his father had once spoken about from his college years. The fraternity had recently been placed on probation for noise violations, and its leadership wanted to keep traditions low-key. But the newer members, eager to impress, planned a series of harmless pranks that night. The idea came from a viral clip circulating online where someone was wrapped in a blanket and dragged across a gym floor. The fraternity's second-floor hallway had tile floors that reflected the yellow glow of ceiling lights, ending abruptly at a concrete stairwell landing. Tanner had brought his old blue sleeping bag for the overnight event. He didn't realize that while he was talking with another member, someone had already laid the sleeping bag out and tied a rope to it, planning to jump scare him by yanking it down the hallway once he got in. The rope they used was a frayed nylon cord used for towing lawn equipment. Red plastic cups and a half-empty cooler sat nearby, leftovers from earlier drinking games, though no one was heavily intoxicated. At around 10:40 p.m., Tanner climbed into the sleeping bag, laughing as they zipped it shut around his shoulders, leaving only a small gap near his face for air. 2 pledges tied the rope to the end of the bag, double-looped for security, while the others gathered at the opposite end of the hall. The plan was to race from one end to the other and stop before the stairwell. Someone yelled a countdown, and the group took off running, dragging the bag behind them as Tanner's muffled voice could be heard screaming and laughing through the fabric. At first, everything went as expected. Sliding sounds, laughter, and the echo of sneakers on tile. But as the runners picked up speed, the hallway's waxed surface reduced friction more than they anticipated. One of the runners lost grip of the rope. The sleeping bag, still moving, slid freely toward the stairwell. The others lunged after it, their shoes slipping uselessly against the slick floor. The bag hit the concrete wall beside the stairwell with a sharp, heavy crack. The sound cut through the laughter instantly. When they unzipped the bag, Tanner was motionless, his head tilted unnaturally to the side. Attempts at CPR were panicked and uncoordinated, and they eventually called for help minutes after the impact. Campus police arrived within 8 minutes. Paramedics confirmed Tanner's death at the scene, citing a cervical fracture at the C2 vertebra, consistent with blunt force trauma to the neck. The medical examiner later determined the injury occurred instantly upon impact. The university expelled the group permanently, and 5 fraternity members were charged with reckless endangerment and furnishing alcohol to minors. Tanner Wells's parents requested privacy and declined interviews. It was January 15, 2022, when a winter afternoon in suburban Minneapolis turned deadly over what should have been a harmless social media stunt. Roscoe Lane, a 19-year-old college sophomore studying business, had returned home for winter break to spend time with his family. Known for his easygoing nature and willingness to help others, Roscoe often indulged his younger brother Tyler's creative projects. Tyler, 16, was an aspiring content creator who spent most of his free time filming videos for his small but growing social media following. The temperature had dropped to -12 degrees Fahrenheit that afternoon, with overcast skies casting a gray pallor over the snow-packed neighborhood. The concrete patio behind their family home was covered in a thick layer of ice and snow, creating treacherous conditions that would prove fatal. Wind gusts occasionally swept across the exposed backyard, adding to the harsh winter atmosphere. Tyler had been planning an ice bucket challenge video, but with a twist he claimed would make it safer and more comfortable. He assured his older brother they would use warm water and film inside their heated garage, making it completely harmless despite the brutal winter conditions outside. Tyler had spent days researching different video angles and lighting setups to make the content more engaging for his audience. However, Tyler had secretly prepared a different setup. He filled a 5-gallon metal bucket with near-freezing water and suspended it from a deck beam approximately 12 feet above the patio, using a rope with a quick-release mechanism. The total weight of the water and metal container exceeded 40 pounds. When it came time to film, Tyler convinced Roscoe to step outside briefly, claiming they needed better lighting for the video while maintaining his assurances about safety. Trusting his younger brother completely, Roscoe agreed to the change in location. Tyler positioned his brother on a marked spot directly beneath the suspended bucket and instructed him to close his eyes for a dramatic countdown. The phone camera captured everything that followed. When Tyler pulled the release rope, the knot slipped unevenly, and because the rope had been tied slightly off-center on the handle, the bucket swung forward in a short arc before dropping. The metal corner struck Roscoe directly in the left temple, while the frigid water hit him simultaneously. The video showed the bucket rotating as it fell, which caused the corner to make the first point of contact. The impact generated a sharp metallic sound, captured clearly on the recording, followed by the thud of Roscoe's body hitting the patio. Roscoe collapsed backward onto the concrete patio, his breathing becoming shallow as blood appeared at his scalp, details visible on the recording. Responders later noted that Roscoe's clothing had already stiffened with ice in the sub-zero air. The combination of near-freezing water and minus 12 degrees Fahrenheit wind gusts created rapid conductive heat loss, which paramedics documented on their initial assessment. Emergency responders arrived within 8 minutes of Tyler's frantic call. Paramedics found Roscoe unconscious, with a severely depressed level of consciousness and signs of significant head trauma. His core temperature was already falling by the time paramedics assessed him, consistent with the rapid heat loss noted earlier in the call. Roscoe was rushed to a nearby trauma center, where CT scans revealed a temporal bone fracture with intracranial hemorrhaging. Despite aggressive treatment, his condition continued to deteriorate over the following hours. 3 hours after the accident, Roscoe Lane was pronounced dead from his injuries. The coroner's official report listed the cause of death as blunt force head trauma, with hypothermia noted as a contributing factor. Investigators closed the case as an accidental death based on the evidence documented in the phone video. What began as a brother's trust in a seemingly harmless prank had ended in tragedy, demonstrating how quickly good intentions can turn deadly when safety is compromised for entertainment. It was July 4th, 2015, when a 4th of July pool party in Phoenix turned into a nightmare that would claim the life of someone who trusted her friends completely. Tess Sinclair, a 25-year-old marketing professional, had always been adventurous and embraced life with infectious enthusiasm. She had been swimming competitively since childhood and felt completely at home in the water. Tess worked for a local advertising agency and was known among colleagues for her creative energy and positive attitude that made her popular in both professional and social settings. The evening temperature held steady at 89 degrees under clear Arizona skies, perfect for the backyard celebration. The residential pool featured underwater lighting in the deep end, which measured 8 feet, while the shallow end provided a 3-foot depth. The homeowner had recently installed new LED lighting systems that created an inviting ambiance for evening gatherings. Tess's friend group had planned what they considered a harmless surprise, using a remote-controlled device designed to look like a shark fin, thinking it would create a fun scare followed by laughter. What made this situation particularly dangerous was the information the friends possessed but failed to share. Earlier text messages revealed their awareness of a significant safety issue with the pool's main drain system. The group also knew the pool operated with a single main drain, rather than a safer dual drain system. The drain cover had developed cracks, but repairs had been postponed. The cracks had widened to the point where several plastic slats were partially detached, leaving exposed edges capable of catching hair. Despite knowing about this hazard, the friends repeatedly assured Tess that the pool had been recently serviced and was completely safe for swimming. They encouraged her to take laps before the fireworks display. Tess entered the water with complete confidence, trusting her friends' assurances. She began swimming laps with practice strokes from years of competitive swimming. The friends activated their remote-controlled fin device, sending it gliding toward Tess from behind. When she noticed the approaching fin during her backstroke, her natural reaction was to dive underwater to avoid the apparent threat. In her dive, Tess angled toward the deep-end wall, unknowingly passing directly over the compromised main drain. The powerful suction created by the pool's circulation system created a deadly trap. Tess's long hair became entangled in the broken drain cover, holding her underwater despite her swimming expertise. Investigators later confirmed that the active circulation pump created enough suction at the compromised drain to trap her hair. Her friends realized something had gone wrong when she failed to resurface. 2 jumped into the pool while another ran to shut off the circulation pump. Even after the pump stopped, her hair remained knotted in the broken slats, preventing her from rising to the surface. Phone video timestamps revealed that approximately 60 seconds had elapsed before they could free her hair. When they brought Tess to the surface, she was cyanotic and unresponsive. The group immediately began CPR while calling emergency services. Emergency technicians arrived within 7 minutes and managed to restore a pulse after multiple resuscitation cycles. Tess was rushed to a nearby regional medical center where doctors worked to address the severe oxygen deprivation. Despite medical efforts, Tess never regained consciousness. She remained on life support for 6 days before her family made the difficult decision to let her go. The official cause of death was drowning with anoxic brain injury. Investigation revealed the friends' knowledge about the pool's dangerous condition. City inspectors cited multiple violations, including the non-compliant single main drain and damaged cover. Text evidence documented how the friends had assured Tess of safety while knowing about the serious hazard. The family filed a wrongful death lawsuit for failure to warn about known dangers. What began as a harmless holiday prank became a tragic reminder that concealing safety hazards can have fatal consequences when trust is betrayed. It was November 11th, 2016, when what should have been a peaceful solo hike in the Colorado foothills became a deadly test orchestrated by family deception. Beckett Stone, a 31-year-old environmental consultant, had built his reputation on careful risk assessment and methodical planning. His colleagues respected his ability to navigate complex outdoor projects, and he approached wilderness activities with the same systematic mindset. Beckett had been hiking these trails near Boulder for over a decade. He specialized in environmental impact assessments for construction projects and was known throughout the industry for his thorough documentation and safety protocols. The afternoon weather presented typical late autumn challenges, with overcast skies and a temperature of 38 degrees Fahrenheit. Light snow had begun falling, gradually reducing visibility across the mixed rock and scrub landscape. Weather forecasts had predicted worsening conditions throughout the evening, making it important to complete any outdoor activities quickly. Connor, Beckett's younger brother, who worked as an emergency communications coordinator, had contacted him earlier that week with what he described as an important request. Connor explained that the local search and rescue team needed to conduct a training exercise and required an experienced hiker to serve as a practice subject. Connor assured Beckett that the exercise would be completely controlled and safe, emphasizing that his outdoor experience made him perfect for the training scenario. He provided specific instructions about where to position himself and how to signal the aircraft. What Beckett didn't realize was that Connor had fabricated the entire training exercise story. Instead of coordinating with search and rescue teams, Connor had placed a genuine emergency call to dispatch services, using Beckett's name and location to report a hiker in distress. When Beckett heard the helicopter approaching, he followed Connor's detailed instructions without question. Trusting his brother's assurances about safety protocols, he climbed onto an exposed rock formation that provided clear visibility for the aircraft crew. The outcrop was a weathered ledge, approximately 12 to 15 feet above the main trail, with loose talus and unstable rock formations scattered above it. Among the loose debris was a large slab positioned directly above the ledge where Beckett stood. Under normal circumstances, his experience would have made him more cautious, but Connor's instructions had directed him to gain the highest visible position. The helicopter crew, unaware of any scheduled training exercise, treated the situation as a legitimate emergency response. They began a careful approach to assess the reported victim's condition. As the aircraft maneuvered into position, additional air disturbance swept across the already unstable slope above Beckett's position. Investigators later determined that the helicopter's rotor wash intensified existing slope instability, contributing to a large slab of rock weighing approximately 200 pounds breaking free. The boulder broke free just as Beckett shifted his weight to descend, striking him before he could move out from beneath the overhanging rock. The massive rock pinned his torso against the formation, causing immediate and catastrophic internal injuries. Nearby hikers witnessed the rock fall and contacted emergency services, while the helicopter crew radioed in the accident. Ground rescue personnel reached Beckett using technical rope systems, but his injuries made any intervention impossible. He was pronounced dead at the scene from massive crush injuries. Investigation revealed Connor's deception through dispatch records. No training exercise had been scheduled, and Connor's false emergency report had directly led to his brother's death. Connor was arrested and charged with felony false reporting and criminally negligent homicide. Beckett's death served as a tragic reminder that manipulating emergency services can create the very dangers they're designed to prevent. It was December 14th, 2019. The Montana wilderness had transformed into a frozen wasteland where heavy snowfall reduced visibility to mere yards and temperatures had dropped to -23 degrees Fahrenheit. The nearest hospital lay 45 miles away on treacherous mountain roads. Peter Romano had earned a reputation for staying steady when everything went wrong. The 34-year-old paramedic stood 6 feet 1 inch with the solid build of someone accustomed to life-or-death situations. Peter had taken a rare week off to help his uncle renovate an old barn. His cousin Derek possessed a restless energy that never seemed satisfied. The 31-year-old freelance videographer had been struggling to build his client base, constantly chasing the next big opportunity. Derek had convinced himself that high-drama medical videos could go viral and generate advertising revenue. The plan Derek had crafted seemed brilliant. He would stage a fake medical emergency using Peter as an unwitting subject, creating dramatic content that would launch his career. During their break, Peter swallowed his early afternoon dose of antiarrhythmic heart medication, something he rarely talked about. That afternoon, Derek prepared coffee for both of them. What Peter didn't know was that Derek had secretly mixed 30 grams of activated charcoal powder into his cup, disguising it as a health supplement. Derek assured his cousin it was completely safe. Peter, trusting his family completely, consumed the entire cup while they discussed their progress. The bitter taste seemed normal for what Derek had described as a detox blend. About 30 minutes later, Peter felt a wave of cramping, nausea, and lightheadedness, right when his medication should have been taking effect. Derek immediately began filming, feigning concern while secretly documenting what he believed would be valuable footage. But Derek had made a catastrophic miscalculation. The massive dose of activated charcoal began binding to essential medications in Peter's system. Because Peter had taken his medication only minutes earlier, the charcoal bound to it before it could be absorbed. His medical training immediately recognized the symptoms of serious arrhythmias developing. He instructed Derek to call 911 immediately. Derek, still convinced this was part of his planned scenario, continued filming instead of seeking help. He assured Peter that the symptoms were temporary. Peter's condition deteriorated with terrifying speed as his cardiac medication was completely neutralized. His heart rhythm became increasingly erratic, and he collapsed on the barn floor, going into full cardiac arrest, while Derek finally realized his entertainment had become a genuine emergency. The 911 call came too late. The remote location and severe weather meant the nearest ambulance was 45 minutes away. Derek attempted CPR based on Peter's instructions, but his lack of training made his efforts ineffective. When emergency responders finally arrived, they found Peter in complete cardiac arrest. Despite advanced life support measures, he was pronounced dead at the regional medical center. The medical examiner determined that death resulted from cardiac arrhythmia caused by the sudden withdrawal of essential heart medication due to activated charcoal absorption. Derek's own video footage provided investigators with complete documentation, and prosecutors secured an involuntary manslaughter conviction that resulted in a multi-year prison sentence. Peter Romano, who had dedicated his career to saving others during medical emergencies, died because someone he trusted had weaponized his own medical vulnerability for social media fame. It was March 8, 2016, when a birthday surprise on a dark California highway became a fatal case of deception gone wrong. Indigo Reed, a hard-working 22-year-old warehouse employee, had just finished another late shift at a distribution center outside Bakersfield. Known for her reliability and cautious nature, Indigo always took the same route home along quiet rural roads. She had worked at the facility for nearly 3 years and was respected by supervisors for her consistent performance and attention to detail. Her 3 roommates had been planning what they believed would be an unforgettable birthday surprise. They wanted to create something memorable that would make for great content and give her an adrenaline rush. The group had been living together for over 18 months and considered themselves close friends who enjoyed elaborate celebrations and social media documentation. The plan involved staging a fake personal safety scenario. The roommates told Indigo that a local security company was offering free educational demonstrations to young women, emphasizing how completely safe and controlled the experience would be. They assured her it was a legitimate service designed to teach defensive driving. What Indigo didn't know was that no security company existed. Her roommates had recruited Marcus, an acquaintance who did amateur theater, to play a would-be attacker. They chose an isolated stretch of 2-lane highway for the demonstration, far from witnesses. The location was deliberately remote, surrounded by farmland with minimal street lighting, creating what the roommates believed would be a harmless scare, followed by laughter. As Indigo drove through the darkness, she spotted a masked figure stepping near the road shoulder. Marcus raised what appeared to be a handgun. Investigators later confirmed it was an airsoft replica with the orange tip removed. He was positioned near the left edge of the roadway, partially stepping toward Indigo's lane. Despite prior assurances about safety, Indigo's survival instincts took over. The scenario felt too real, and her cautious personality made her assume the worst. Rather than stopping as expected, she pressed the accelerator and jerked the steering wheel right. Her vehicle left the asphalt at approximately 45 miles per hour, skidding along gravel before striking a concrete drainage culvert. The front passenger side wheel hit the concrete lip of the culvert, initiating the rollover. The car rolled multiple times before coming to rest upside down in a shallow irrigation ditch. Marcus immediately called emergency services, explaining that what appeared to be a real emergency had actually been a planned demonstration gone wrong. When first responders arrived, they found Indigo trapped in the inverted vehicle, unresponsive despite deployed airbags. The windshield had spiderwebbed from impact, and the roof was partially crushed. According to the fire rescue report, extrication required hydraulic tools and took more than 40 minutes. Despite paramedic efforts, Indigo showed no signs of breathing and could not be revived. The coroner's examination revealed Indigo had suffered a cervical spine fracture with complete spinal cord transection, causing immediate death at impact. Investigators recovered text messages between roommates that documented their deception about the supposed security company. The Highway Patrol's collision report attributed the loss of control to an evasive maneuver under perceived threat. Prosecutors pursued involuntary manslaughter charges, along with additional counts related to the staged threat and the use of a replica firearm. What the roommates intended as a memorable birthday surprise became a tragic reminder of how quickly perceived threats can turn deadly, even when the danger is entirely fabricated. It was September 22, 2018, when a routine evening at a downtown Portland office building turned into a deadly mechanical nightmare orchestrated by misplaced trust. Holden Miller, a 28-year-old technology specialist, was known for his methodical approach and dedication to completing projects properly. That evening, he was wrapping up critical server maintenance in the 15-story building. Holden had been employed with the company for over 4 years and was considered one of their most reliable technical staff members. The building dates back to the 1960s, featuring an aging elevator system with traditional swing door landings. Most employees had left for the day, leaving the corridors quiet. The vintage architecture required constant maintenance and careful handling. Jake, a facilities coordinator, had developed what he considered an elaborate but harmless prank. Jake possessed a mischievous personality and enjoyed creating scenarios that would startle co-workers. Earlier that day, Jake told Holden that the elevator system had just undergone a comprehensive safety inspection and was operating at peak performance. He emphasized how recent maintenance made the elevators exceptionally safe. What Holden didn't realize was that Jake had accessed the machine room without authorization and manipulated the elevator controls. Building logs would later reveal no safety inspection had occurred, and Jake had deliberately bypassed critical door safety circuits. When Holden called for an elevator to return to the ground floor, everything initially seemed normal. The car arrived promptly and functioned as expected during descent from the 12th floor. However, as the elevator approached the 8th floor, Jake's tampering had defeated the mechanical door interlock, leaving the landing door unlocked. When Holden arrived, it stood slightly ajar, giving the appearance that the car was properly aligned. Through the intercom system, Jake announced what he claimed was a routine diagnostic test. He advised Holden that if the elevator floor appeared close to landing level, he could carefully step out to avoid inconvenience. Trusting Jake's earlier assurances about safety, Holden observed that the landing threshold appeared only a few inches below the car's floor level. The gap seemed manageable. The dim corridor lighting made the drop appear smaller than it was. As Holden attempted to step from the elevator to the landing, Jake's unauthorized modifications caused the car to make an unexpected movement of approximately 18 inches. The sudden shift created a dangerous shearing situation at the doorway. As the car shifted downward, Holden's lower body became caught between the car sill and the landing threshold. creating a crushing shearing force. The downward motion forced him off balance, causing him to slip beneath the threshold and fall into the shaft pit. Emergency responders worked for over an hour to safely extract Holden from the shaft while ensuring the elevator system was secured. Despite rapid response and professional medical care, Holden was pronounced dead from severe blunt force trauma and internal injuries caused by compression and fall. Investigation by state elevator inspectors revealed the full extent of Jake's unauthorized tampering with safety systems. Control logs and security footage confirmed Jake had defeated multiple safety interlocks. Prosecutors charged Jake with involuntary manslaughter due to criminal negligence and unauthorized access to building safety systems. Holden's death served as a stark reminder that workplace pranks involving safety equipment can have catastrophic results, regardless of intentions. It was October 3, 2015, in a quiet suburb of central Ohio. The attic of one split-level home sat above a dark basement drop, its structure aging in ways no one in the house thought about. Tyler Moore, 17, balanced school with caring for his grandmother, who lived with his family and relied on him for daily errands. He was quiet, rarely involved in anything reckless, but he followed two extroverted friends who constantly pushed for clips that might gain traction online. Their humor revolved around staged reactions and jump scares, hoping something might be shared enough to get minor attention on social platforms. They used basic gear, a phone on a small stairwell tripod, handheld lights, and a cheap crate reinforced with mesh they bought secondhand. The raccoon they trapped the evening before had already shown stress, pacing, clawing, and biting at the crate's edge, but they assumed they could control the moment long enough to provoke a reaction from the homeowner's older brother, who slept downstairs. The stunt was more dangerous than anything they had attempted. A wild animal in a confined space, a cluttered attic with brittle surfaces and limited visibility. The boys dismissed it, focused instead on setting up angles that showed Tyler handling the crate while the others filmed from the attic stairs. The stairwell phone video shows the crate being unlatched. As soon as the door cracked open, the raccoon erupted out, scrambling along the narrow joists. The boys startled, and the handheld lights swung wildly, washing the attic in uneven beams. Tyler climbed fully into the attic to contain the animal, stepping between joists where insulation dipped unevenly. The footage captured how limited his footing was and how close he was to the drywall panel covering the recessed storage space, which was not supported by joists and could not hold an adult's weight. The raccoon darted back toward him, then suddenly leapt past his left arm. Tyler turned sharply toward the movement, planting his right foot onto the brittle plasterboard. The panel cracked and collapsed immediately under his estimated 160-pound weight. His weight punched through, and the rest collapsed beneath him. The video caught the exact moment his body dropped through the ceiling, dust and broken drywall trailing behind. He fell about 14 feet, landing on the concrete basement floor with a blunt, forceful impact. His friends' screams echoed on the recording as they ran down the stairs, finding Tyler unconscious, bleeding heavily from the head, with visible skull indentation. One friend called 911 immediately. Emergency services arrived in roughly 4 minutes, initiated CPR, and transported him to a nearby trauma center. Resuscitation efforts continued, but he never regained consciousness. Investigators confirmed the collapse occurred due to weight placed on unsupported drywall. The coroner reported multiple skull fractures, bleeding around the brain, and widespread injury inside the brain itself from the sudden stop against concrete. Cause of death was severe traumatic brain injury. Afterward, Tyler's grandmother lost the support she depended on, prompting a relative to move in temporarily. The two friends faced juvenile charges for unlawful wildlife handling and completed community service focused on public safety education. It was May 14, 2016, on a narrow residential stretch in Bishopston, Bristol. The early light was flat and cool, and the road was quiet in a way that made small sounds stand out. Nothing appeared dangerous, but the conditions made any unexpected disruption more jarring than usual. Owen Clark, 29, followed this route nearly every morning. He balanced part-time work as an amateur running coach with a small job at a local sports shop, using jogging to manage long-standing anxiety. He coached kids from low-income families on afternoons he wasn't working, drawing occasional support from a community youth program and a small local athletic brand that donated gear for his team. For runners like him, the technical focus was on stable footing, predictable surfaces, and maintaining awareness at crossings. The intersection he used was considered safe, because it had mild traffic and clear sight lines. Despite that, Owen was aware that the road had one quirk, a blind driveway, where vehicles could emerge without much warning. He compensated by slowing slightly as he passed it, a habit verified in his GPS log. That morning, he kept to the same routine, aiming for a steady pace before meeting two junior athletes later that week. He was preparing them for a small charity relay and wanted to test part of the route himself. Across the street, a group of teenagers had been lingering around the area for 2 days, discussing a prank meant to record startled reactions from runners. They carried a handheld air horn normally used at parties. One of them had checked traffic patterns earlier and noted that mornings were quiet. They chose a hedge across from the intersection, believing they were positioned safely away from the road and out of sight. That morning, at 7:16 a.m., Owen approached the crossing. Weather reports later confirmed a slight drop in temperature that made the road's surface firmer than usual, affecting traction slightly. Witnesses saw him adjust his stride as he prepared to cross. At the same moment, an SUV rolled out from the blind driveway at a slow but steady speed. The driver was estimated at approximately 18 miles per hour, giving limited time to react. The teenage group crouched lower, waiting for Owen to reach the midpoint of the intersection, ignoring the sound of tires they likely heard but dismissed as distant. At 7:18 a.m., the air horn detonated from just a few feet away. CCTV from a home across the street, later reviewed by investigators, captured how abruptly Owen reacted. His body jolted sideways and backward from the shock, his left foot landing on the curb edge at an angle that caused his ankle to twist. He lost balance fully and fell off the curb into the road. The SUV's driver applied the brakes instantly, but the distance was too short to prevent impact. The front bumper struck Owen's right side and head as he was still falling. The bumper impacted his chest and head simultaneously, causing him to rotate and hit the asphalt with severe force. Two nearby residents ran to him within seconds, pulling him clear of the vehicle. The driver called emergency services immediately. Others flagged down traffic and attempted basic first aid. Paramedics arrived 7 minutes after the call and initiated advanced life support, but his injuries were extensive. He was transported to a nearby hospital and pronounced dead shortly after. The coroner's report cited blunt head trauma with a depressed skull fracture, traumatic injury to the cervical spine, and massive intracranial bleeding. The cause of death was fatal blunt force trauma consistent with a pedestrian vehicle impact. In the weeks that followed, the running club Owen helped lead paused all group sessions and organized a memorial to support youth coaching. Police used CCTV to identify the teenagers, who were later charged with public nuisance and reckless endangerment. It was September 3, 2014, on a shaded section of the Timber Ridge Trail on Vancouver Island. The dim light and slick surfaces made sudden movement riskier than most people realized. Marissa Hale, 33, had built a quiet reputation in the community as both a midwife and an advocate for low-impact urban hiking. She split her days between clinical work and leading short mindfulness walks that drew locals who preferred gentle, accessible trails. She had no sponsors in the commercial sense, but a regional wellness nonprofit often asked her to record brief nature segments for their social pages, encouraging her to stay active on familiar routes. The terrain on Timber Ridge was typical of coastal forest: narrow footpaths, wet roots, and patches of moss that could behave unpredictably when stepped on at speed. Marissa understood these conditions well. She trained beginner hikers to slow down on descents and to treat shaded areas like black ice. Her approach was methodical rather than adventurous. She chose this late afternoon walk as a decompressing routine after a difficult birth case the night before. The plan was straightforward, a loop she had completed dozens of times, with no technical sections and minimal elevation change. Unbeknownst to her, two acquaintances, ages 19 and 21, had been on the trail roughly an hour earlier, preparing a prank intended to record exaggerated fear reactions for online video content. They were dressed in a full-body bear suit, purchased online, bulky enough to resemble a distant wildlife silhouette in low light. They chose a bend in the trail where visibility narrowed for several steps. Dismissing the ethical concerns one of them had mentioned about startling people on wet, low-traction terrain, weather advisories had noted lingering slickness from the previous night, but they assumed a quick scare posed no real danger. At around 5:12 p.m., Marissa approached the bend at an even pace. Her GPS data later showed a steady walking speed of roughly 3 miles per hour, with no abrupt changes. The forest around her was quiet, except for the water runoff near a creek a few yards downhill. As she rounded the curve, the costumed pranksters stepped out and produced a loud, guttural roar. They were close enough that the shape was unmistakably large, though obviously unnatural upon prolonged look, something she didn't have time to process. She spun around instantly and broke into a downhill run. One prankster was holding a handheld camera, and the recorded footage showed the sequence with jarring clarity. Marissa's stride accelerated rapidly, her arms tense, her footfalls loud against wet ground. The camera caught roughly 10 seconds of her descent before the operator stumbled and the device fell sideways into ferns. In the final frame before it tipped, she was sprinting toward a narrow creekside ledge bordered by moss-covered stones and exposed roots, approximately 13 feet above a jagged rock outcrop below. She slipped on a slick patch just as she attempted to turn. Witness analysis and rescue markings indicated her right foot landed on a thin layer of wet moss over the stone lip, causing it to slide forward while her upper body momentum carried her over the edge. She pitched sideways, crossed the shallow lip without breaking, and fell approximately 13 feet onto the jagged rocks below. The impact produced immediate loss of consciousness, evident from her lack of movement on the recording and confirmed by the position in which rescuers found her. The pranksters reached her within seconds, but hesitated, visibly shaken according to later statements. One dialed 911 at 5:14 p.m., and responders arrived 18 minutes later. She was transported to hospital with massive head trauma, including a basilar skull fracture and brainstem injury, and died during emergency surgery. The coroner described the injuries as consistent with a short fall onto rock from a height of 13 feet, including extensive swelling and trauma to the brainstem and surrounding tissue. The cause of death was severe head trauma from the fall. In the aftermath, the two pranksters were charged with criminal negligence, causing death. Marissa's community clinic organized a small memorial walk, and her hiking group paused activities for several weeks, citing concerns about trail safety awareness. It was November 12, 2017, on a small grazing property outside Dubbo in New South Wales. Several farmhands later noted that the paddocks were unusually quiet, with a faint hum near the fence line that most of them ignored. Lachlan Reed, 21, was midway through his traineeship as a landscape gardener. He split his time between coursework, local yard contracts, and volunteering for elderly neighbors who relied on him for pruning and minor repairs. He was patient, soft-spoken, and methodical, traits that made him popular among clients. His training emphasized safe handling of outdoor hazards, snakes, wasp nests, and sharp branches, though he had minimal exposure to large, established feral bee colonies. He wore basic work gear most days: canvas pants, steel-toe boots, and a light, breathable shirt meant for yard labor rather than wildlife encounters. That afternoon, a fence line with thick wooden posts, where a substantial feral bee colony had nested inside a hollow knot of timber. The hive was roughly 2 feet across, larger than it appeared from a distance, and bees entered and exited steadily. Lachlan knew bees were common in the region, but he had no reason to believe this colony was aggressive. He had never shown serious allergic reactions, only mild swelling after the occasional sting from garden insects. The group he was with had gathered for a casual break after clearing brush nearby. A few had been drinking more heavily, though witnesses confirmed Lachlan had only taken a couple of beers, enough to slightly relax him but not impair judgment. Boredom drifted into reckless talk, and someone suggested provoking the hive to see a brief swarm for a phone clip. Lachlan initially brushed off the idea, but the others urged him on, insisting it would just puff out a cloud of bees for a moment. No one acknowledged the heat advisory that day, noting increased insect defensiveness in high temperatures and low humidity. Around 4:46 p.m., Lachlan picked up a small stone and walked toward the fence. Witness accounts and phone footage confirmed he tossed the rock lightly, striking the lower edge of the hive. The reaction was immediate. A thick surge of bees flowed out in a dense, vibrating cloud that likely contained hundreds of worker bees, moving rapidly due to the disturbed hive. Lachlan turned, waving his arms instinctively, and began running back toward the group. Within seconds, several bees latched onto the back of his head and neck. Witnesses saw him slow abruptly, coughing and pressing a hand to his throat. He stumbled, struggled to inhale, and collapsed to his knees. Multiple stings were visible across his scalp and jawline. Friends tried removing stingers with fingernails and applied wet cloths, but swelling progressed rapidly. One person called emergency services at 4:47 p.m. Paramedics arrived 8 minutes later and found him with severe facial and neck swelling, hypotension, and a constricted airway. He went into cardiac arrest en route and was pronounced dead soon after arrival. The coroner described a rapid, severe anaphylactic reaction triggered by multiple stings concentrated on the head and neck, which caused his airway to swell to the point that breathing was nearly impossible. The lack of oxygen caused further organ damage, consistent with what is observed in massive bee sting-induced anaphylaxis. In the aftermath, the landscaping company he trained with introduced mandatory allergy testing, epinephrine training, and emergency response instruction for all workers. A community fundraiser helped support his partner, and several friends later disclosed ongoing guilt over encouraging the dare that led to his death. It was August 18, 2018, on the wooden pier at Brighton, UK. Early pedestrians noted gulls circling overhead, but the pier itself appeared calm and quiet. No one present anticipated that the day's lighthearted antics would culminate in a lethal accident. Jordan Pike, 19, was a first-year university student studying marine biology. He was quiet and diligent, often keeping late hours studying or volunteering for local environmental cleanup programs. Despite his reserved nature, he had a playful streak with close friends, occasionally agreeing to harmless pranks. Jordan was in typical casual attire that morning: jeans, a lightweight jacket, and trainers. His environment, a public pier with timber decking over open water, was stable under normal conditions, but required care when footing was compromised, and the railings were weathered and partially weakened from years of saltwater exposure. He had recently started documenting wildlife along the coast for a small social media following, balancing study and hobby with modest camera gear. Jordan's friends often encouraged viral-style antics for amusement, though he generally avoided reckless stunts. That morning, he had consumed a small amount of alcohol, but was not impaired. The technical risk lay in the pier itself: timber planks prone to slipperiness, uneven boards, and a rotten section of railing hidden from casual view, factors unnoticed by Jordan or his friends in their playful mood. The group decided on a prank after finding Jordan asleep on a bench. The idea was simple: scatter fries over him and film seagulls descending to feed. The friends positioned him near the railing and recorded, expecting only minor squawking and pecking. No one inspected the railing's condition. The ocean breeze and residual mild intoxication slightly impaired Jordan's balance, but the pranksters disregarded caution, prioritizing laughter and potential video views. As the birds intensified their pecking, Jordan awoke abruptly, startled by the flurry of wings and snapping beaks. Footage from a witness phone shows him thrashing to shoo the gulls, stumbling toward the pier edge in panic. He leaned against the rotten railing, which failed beneath his weight. Jordan toppled forward, plunging roughly 8 feet into the water below, striking the underside support beams on descent and sustaining immediate cranial and upper torso trauma. A bystander reacted quickly, jumping into the water and pulling Jordan to the surface within minutes. He was unconscious, gasping and coughing seawater. Emergency services arrived approximately 8 minutes later. Attempts at resuscitation continued on site and during transport to hospital, but he never regained consciousness. The combined blunt trauma and aspiration proved unsurvivable. The coroner's report described a basilar skull fracture with brainstem injury, significant seawater aspiration, and pulmonary edema. The cause of death was listed as combined blunt craniocerebral trauma and drowning. Aftermath measures included pier authorities inspecting and replacing multiple decayed railing sections. Jordan's friends faced minor legal consequences, including criminal trespass citations, while the incident prompted local campaigns warning of pier hazards and the dangers of alcohol-impaired pranks near water. It was August 24, 2013, on Lake Mille Lacs, Minnesota. Despite the calm appearance, the lake's glacial origins created sudden, shallow rock shelves hidden beneath deceptively deep water, a hazard largely unnoticed by casual visitors. Ethan Morales, 25, worked seasonally as a lifeguard at a local municipal pool and occasionally picked up shifts at nearby community centers. He had grown up swimming competitively with precise knowledge of rescue techniques, risk assessment, and water dynamics. Known for his calm demeanor under pressure, Ethan was both conscientious and methodical, often volunteering to supervise younger swimmers or assist in safety courses. His friends frequently sought his guidance during water activities, confident in his ability to respond quickly in emergencies. He carried a small waterproof wrist camera for personal footage, usually capturing laps or boating excursions. His gear was minimal but functional: swim trunks, a light t-shirt, and no life jacket, consistent with routine lake outings where water depth had always seemed sufficient. Ethan's technical awareness of water entry angles, diving mechanics, and submerged hazards made him exceptionally cautious. Yet even he could misjudge depth when distracted or rushed. The wrist camera footage later showed some motion blur due to rapid movement, making the dive sequence clear but not perfectly sharp. The group of friends that day had been drinking lightly, and unbeknownst to Ethan, two had devised a staged drowning scare to film his rescue reaction for an online prank video. They had not accounted for the lake's irregular underwater topography. No one checked the depth or mapped the submerged rock shelves. Their assumption was that Ethan would perform a controlled dive, but the pranker's timing and location placed him directly above one of the hidden ledges. As the prank began, one friend flailed in the water, calling for help. Ethan, reacting instinctively, kicked off the boat's shoes and lunged headfirst toward the commotion at a shallow angle, not realizing the water above the shelf was only 2 to 3 feet deep. The wrist-mounted camera shows him leaping cleanly over the gunnel, but the impact with the rock shelf occurred immediately upon entry, causing a dull, resonant thud. His arms instinctively folded inward, and his body went rigid, sinking immediately, with no attempt to swim or resurface. Two bystanders in another boat noticed the sudden splash and rushed to assist, pulling him to the surface within about 40 seconds. CPR began immediately, but Ethan displayed no spontaneous breathing. Emergency medical services arrived approximately 12 minutes later, transported him to a regional hospital, and he was pronounced dead shortly after arrival. Witnesses corroborated the sequence. The wrist camera footage provided a clear but slightly blurred record of the dive and impact, accurately showing the sequence of events. The coroner's report described a complete cervical spinal cord transection, resulting from hyperflexion on impact with the submerged rock shelf. Secondary hypoxic brain injury occurred due to apnea following the spinal cord disruption. The cause of death was listed as atlantoaxial fracture with complete spinal cord transection. Ethan's family emphasized his lifelong commitment to helping others in water emergencies, which made the sudden, preventable death especially painful. Authorities reviewed the wrist camera footage and statements from the prank organizers for potential negligent manslaughter charges. Thanks for watching. Want to watch more? Click on your screen now